Well, welcome to Not Your Normal Sunday. Glad to have you here with us. Hope that you're enjoying a good day and that you're ready for some unindoctrination. We kind of made a little tweak, moving a little bit away from just being exclusively the Christian Whistleblower and moving into the Unindoctrination Station. So I'd like to welcome you to the Unindoctrination Station. I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. And our job here is to give you the tools you need to become divine, sovereign, and free, to unindoctrinate yourself, to create yourself, and to optimize yourself. We don't believe that we're born with original sin. We know we've got the spark of divinity within, so we don't go and bend the knee to anybody's savior because we're divine, we're sovereign, and we're free. And I want to give you some great previews for next week. We've got rocking shows on Late Night in the Heartland coming up. Tomorrow night, Who Was That Masked Man? Who Is That Masked Man? Mask all the way from the plague through Joe Biden, whoever is playing Joe Biden right now, it seems to be. So that'll be tomorrow night, and we've got a lot of great stuff ready for you here today as well. This is not your normal Sunday show, so you get a lot of stuff that's not normal, and today we're going to talk about the fact that everything, I said I needed, but I probably should have said, everything that we need to know in life can be learned from Captain Kirk and L. Ron Hubbard. That's right. Now, I know a lot of you hear the name L. Ron Hubbard and you get all Twitter-pated. That's okay. L. Ron Hubbard did pioneer and bring to the world and cobble together the greatest spiritual group of spiritual, what's the word I always use? Spiritual technologies to change your life, to unindoctrinate you, to create you, and to optimize you. That's why we talk about it. I know that Dianetics, Scientology have a bad name. A lot of people won't even use those words. I'm not afraid of those words because they mean things and they're important. But what we do is white Scientology, white Dianetics, and Dianetics deals with this. Scientology deals with the spiritual, which we call the Thetan. So we got to start off in Dianetics first. And there are black Dianetics and white Dianetics. Just a short preview, a short summary, I should say. In the late 40s, L. Ron Hubbard was at Oak Harbor Marine Hospital, taking patients, putting together the teachings and the practices that would become Dianetics. And at the same time, there was another wing in that hospital that was taking all of Hubbard's data because he was having such tremendous successes and was back engineering it because Hubbard was setting minds free. They back engineered what Hubbard was doing, and it became what we know today as MK Ultra mind control. So what we have done is, mostly, MK Ultra mind control, you're all about that. Oh, Dianetics are bad. Well, that's because you're ignorant. You don't understand that MK Ultra, the reason MK Ultra is so effective, and none of you in the conspiratorium would argue that MK Ultra is not effective. Of course, MK Ultra is effective. But the very fact that you argue for the effectiveness of MK Ultra shows that the true effectiveness of Dianetics, which is the white part of the black part of MK Ultra, white Dianetics is what started MK Ultra because they reverse engineered it. So before you tell me that white Dianetics is bad, then you need to stop talking about MK Ultra, because if MK Ultra works, it works because white Dianetics work. So what do you got for me now, bitches? That's a great way to shut a bitch up right there, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? And we're glad to have our bitches in the house. We are. We enjoy our bitches because they count too, and we're trying to help a bitch out where we can. We're throwing keys in bitches' cages. If they want to use them and unlock things, then we're good. If not, we'll move on to the next cage. And speaking of cages, how should we react, ladies and gentlemen, to danger? How should we react to punishment? That's the only way to react to a good cup of coffee. So how do we react to these things? This is going to teach you how to create yourself with white Dianetics should you choose to do so. And of course, there's 5 reactions. Well, not of course, but there are 5 reactions towards danger. There's basically 5 ways in which a human being, and I'm assuming that most of you that are watching are, I know some of you are not, you're of that second creation, but if you're here and if you stay here, there might be enough of something in you which might allow you to transform yourself from being a Genesis 2 second creation into at least being able to participate in the Genesis 1 first creation. And folks, I just wrote on the whiteboard of truth, or the whiteboard of potential truth today as I came in, is timeline compression imminent? You'll hear about that very, very soon. We may be in the time where there's dual timelines right now, but they are about to be compressed into one. And where's the low Bible prophecy communist second creation timeline going to go when it consolidates with the first creation divine, sovereign, and free timeline? Because we know that it's almost like matter and antimatter. They can't coexist. So where's that other one going to go? I don't know, but it's going to be very, very interesting. But we're in places today, and in a place today where we are, in my opinion, facing danger. We are, in my opinion, facing punishment. And we're going to react in one of 5 ways. Each and every one of us will react in one of 5 ways. And it's interesting. I don't cherry pick these things. We're going straight through the pre-1972 Hubbbard material, and we just happen to be here in the pre-72 Hubbbard material and while we're here in this place and time. So those things are not coincidences. There are no coincidences, and there are tons of conspiracies, ladies and gentlemen, and we delve into both, and they're usually connected. So there's 5 ways a human can react to danger. There's 5 ways that a human can, 5 courses a human can take to respond to any given problem. And it could be said there's a 5 valued action, because some of these are more effective than others. And they're generally listed here in a order from best and most effective down to worst. But we're going to take a look at these, and we're going to apply them to our lives, the lives that we're living right here today, February 21st, 2021, as I make this video. And wow, that's a lot of 2s and 1s, isn't it? So that's a lot of 3s in there too. Wow. Interesting. Because 2 and 1 makes 3, dummy. That's why. Attack, flee, avoid, neglect, succumb. What in the world is he talking about today? Well, here we go. There's also 5 reactions towards punishment, because danger and punishment can be the same thing. And all the actions that fall within these courses, all 5 of these actions, all 5 of these potential courses that a human can take, they're all visible in life. You can look and observe in life, and you can see people taking all of these visible courses. And how did Captain Kirk get involved in this? We got double Captain Kirks. Wow, that's pretty cool. How did Captain Kirk get involved in this? Well, there's a scene in, I believe it is Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan, where Kirk is talking to Saavik, who, interestingly enough, in regards to our discussion, is played at that time by Kirstie Alley, who, of course, is involved in the Church of Scientology, which I do not endorse, but it's still a funny little connection. And he says to her, roughly, and I try to quote it verbatim, but I might miss a couple of them. He says to her, as your mentor, Mr. Spock, is so fond of saying, I like to believe that there's always possibilities. And there are always possibilities, ladies and gentlemen, typically 5 of them. And how we react is one of these 5 courses and we've got a choice of which one we want to take. So today we are facing danger. We are facing punishment. And we may be facing danger from punishment. So however you decide to label it, I don't think that you can objectively object to the reality that we're facing danger from our government and we're facing danger from punishment from our government. How will we react? And what does that say about us? Because the prophecy, communist, fear and guilt, blood magic, trauma-based mind control, Christian matrix, they react a certain way. Those of us that are divine, sovereign, and free, not running on bended knee to somebody else's savior to beg him to save us from the sin he gave us, we react in a different way. And what does that say about us individually and collectively as a group, the way we react? Working these responses backwards, we'll start with succumb. And succumb means to basically give up, go along with, be a sheep. And we all know that in the fear and guilt, blood magic, trauma-based mind control matrix that is Christianity, being a sheep is what you're supposed to be, because they got a shepherd and they got sheep. And sheep succumb. And shepherds are in the business of making sheep succumb. So let's apply this to the situation we're facing. And we're also facing punishment and danger from Christianity too. Not just the government, but we're facing punishment and danger from Christianity too. Because if Christianity was ever allowed to be in charge, how long would it take for them to punish those of us that dare to say the God of the Bible is a little bitch-ass punk that's not even really a God? How long would it take for them to punish those of us that say the Bible is just an old storybook and not a particularly compelling one? How long would it take them to punish people that say Jesus is plastic and having and asking for the blood to cover you is just as demonic and demented as it is in voodoo? Just because it's in your church, it doesn't sanctify it. How long would it take them to punish us? Not long. So we're facing danger from government and we're facing danger from Christianity because, in case you haven't figured it out yet, Christianity and government are complicit. They're the same thing. Abso-damn-lutely. And whether you see and identify this as either danger or punishment, if we face cruel and unusual mandates from government or cruel and unusual mandates from a religious overlord system, and if we obey them, we can be said to have succumbed. If an unreasonable, unconstitutional, despotic government says you've got to wear a mask on your face and you do it, you're succumbing. If they say you've got to take a vaccine, if they say you've got to shut your business, if they say that you can't go out and you do it without protest, without questioning, you have succumbed. And LRH, L. Ron Hubbard, wrote, somewhat tongue-in-cheek, I think, but very, very clearly and with great correctness, in my opinion, he wrote that any person, that the value of a person, and it might not really be a person, but the value of a person that faces danger, the value of a person that faces punishment and immediately succumbs to obey, their value is so low, they're so worthless, they're of so little energetic, practical value to the world that, he says, if they had been Spartans, they would drown people like that. These people that are such sheep that the church says do it and they do it. The Bible says do it, and they do it. The government says do it, and they do it. They are of such low value that in a rational society that's trying to improve itself, they would drown those people and purify the gene pool. Because if a person faces danger or faces punishment and succumbs and folds just like that, that means that they're so low in apathy, and apathy is the very last part before death anyway, so it's really a mercy killing. It's mercy on the apathetic bitch that doesn't have a mind anymore and just does what they're told. And it's mercy to the society to rid ourselves of them, to make sure they don't reproduce. And of course, we're speaking metaphorically. We're speaking in examples. If you don't know what a metaphor is, I know some of you believe the Bible is the word of God, so metaphor might be a little tough for you. But we're not being literal. We're throwing out ideas and making you think. And sometimes we use absurdity to illustrate absurdity. And this might be one of those times. But when a person has sunk so low as to be in apathy, they're very near the tone of death anyway, and push them over that edge into the water with some rocks, with a big rock necklace. Well, maybe that's not such a bad idea for the person or for the society, which they continue to pollute. Now that's succumbing. The next step from bottom up would be to neglect. Now we can neglect the matter entirely. We can ignore the punishment source. We can ignore the danger source, pretending that it'll go away if we do so long enough and consistently enough. And LRH said this is tantamount or the same thing as being dull-witted. I'll call it irrational. This is where a lot of you Christians are. This is where a lot of you Christians are, especially the ones of you that continue to come to this channel. You know, we've got the Late Night in the Heartland, 2 hours at least every night, Monday through Friday, 10 p.m. Central Time, straight on through till midnight. And Captain Kirk said, second start of the ride and straight on till morning. So we're straight on till midnight. But anyway, where was I at? Oh, yeah. Neglecting consistently and long enough. You come to this channel and you hear truth and it smacks into your false paradigm. But you figure if you can neglect it, ignore it long enough and consistently enough, and can find enough other stupid bitches to join you. Oh, I didn't mean to say stupid. I meant to say irrational bitches. If you could find enough irrational bitches to join you in lowering your analytical mind long enough and consistently enough, you can have a big enough circle jerk where you all can get to the place where you can collectively ignore and neglect truth and reality slapping you, that it will no longer have any effect upon you. That's the end result of neglect. And like LRH said, it's dull-witted, it's irrational. So now we've talked about succumb. Now we've talked about neglect. Let's look at avoid. Now you can also take the tactic of avoiding the danger, avoiding the source of punishment. And positively, this can be seen as pretty smart. Now, I have to admit that Cynthia and I will, to a degree, and some of our good friends that are right where we are in our reactions towards punishment and towards danger is, I mean, if you know that there's a classic thing in Dianetics called the Black Panther, and if you're downstairs and you want to go upstairs and go to sleep, but there's a Black Panther on the staircase, well, then you have to do one of these 5 things to get around that Black Panther. But just in reality, we have to shop, we go out and eat, but we will do it in places that don't require the dangerous face diaper. So we're avoiding the danger and we're avoiding the punishment source. Sometimes we'll go to places when we go that we know are not going to hassle us about the mask. Now, that is sly, that is cunning, that is measured. That is wisdom, you can say. And that's something we can all do. And yet, if we're not careful, the positiveness of being sly and cunning and measured can quickly give way to the negative aspects of pandering to it. Well, we're going to go there because they don't require a mask. But what if theirs starts requiring a mask? And what happens when you run out of theirs? Then you've got to make a decision because avoidance doesn't work anymore. The line has to be drawn individually, but yet the line has to be drawn collectively, because when enough of us say enough, then it will be over. So succumbing, neglecting, avoiding, and then we move up, in my opinion, to the effectiveness level again of fleeing. And fleeing is also open to interpretation. Now, fleeing is not apathy. If you know that you're living in California and it's getting worse and worse, and you decide to sell your grossly overpriced home in California and move to South Dakota where your money's worth a lot more and the living is a lot better, that is fleeing. And if we decided, Cynthia and I, to move to another place that doesn't have an idiot ex-New Yorker as a governor, and that has a less populated terrain and is more defensible and is lower down the list of when they would ever come for us, so to speak, that is fleeing. It kind of goes hand in hand with avoiding. Now, you're not in apathy, you're not in succumbing, but again, you could get to the point, what happens when there's no place else to run? And how often do you run? We even talked about at one time leaving the United States of America. And I know a lot of you have considered that. And it's still not, to be frank with you, totally off my plate, so to speak. But then again, you ask yourself, why should we flee from our own country? Why should we flee from the land of our fathers? Why? So fleeing can be wise. And again, if you've got some idiot that wants to fight you and you walk away, that's wise. But sooner or later, you got to turn around and punch a bitch right in their face. And one of the great problems with our world today, of course, as the great American philosopher Mike Tyson said, the problem with the internet, and I face this every single day, the problem with the world today is that the internet has created a world where people can say whatever they want to whomever they want without worrying about being punched right in the face. And that has created a much less civilized world. It's like when we lived back in Tombstone days, Doc Holliday, Wild Wild West. Guess what? They didn't have any mass school shootings in Tombstone. They didn't have any shootings at the mall in Tombstone. They didn't have shootings at churches in Tombstone. They didn't have any of that shit. You know why? Because by the time one of these probably MK Ultra idiots pulled his gun to try to shoot people in the church, in the school, at the market, there would be 10 other people already filling him with hot lead. That's why there was no school shootings in Tombstone. I long for those days. It was a great day when a bitch had to worry about getting punched in the face by saying stupid shit. It was a great day when a bitch wouldn't attack a school because they knew he would be dead before he could get his Colt leveled. So we can flee. It's not apathy, but there comes a point where fleeing will give way to cowardice. And only you can answer that question, but collectively we do need to answer that question as well. How far and how long? How long do we continue to avoid? How long do we continue to flee? Because once we get to that point and we're asking the questions of, okay, we're not going to succumb. We're not giving into this bullshit. We're just not. That's for the Christians and the sheep to do. We're not going to do it. And those totally enslaved by the deep state and those that are totally complicit and totally dependent on the tit of society for their sustenance. We're never going to succumb. That's out of the question. Never will we succumb. How long can we avoid? How long can we neglect? How long can we flee? We have to answer that individually, and we do have to answer that collectively as well, because sooner or later, we're trying to be good people. We're trying to be, succumb is out of the question, but we're trying to avoid, we're trying to neglect, we're trying to flee. But sooner or later, when succumb isn't an option, and we have neglected, we have avoided, we have fled, sooner or later, we get to the point where there's nowhere else to flee to, there's no other options for neglect, and there's no other options to employ avoidance. Then we come to attack. And even then, there are mediating positions of attack. Because if we finally get pushed too far and we have to directly engage our enemy, directly engage, more correctly worded, the source of danger or the source of punishment, because they can really be a source of danger and a source of punishment without actually being an enemy. Some of these people in Christianity are so irrational. Some of these people in Christianity are so irrational, ladies and gentlemen, that they think that they're doing right. They think they're doing right. So they don't really see themselves as our enemy, but they are in effect our enemy because they want to inflict punishment upon us, and that makes them dangerous. But they're not necessarily an enemy. So we can take varying degrees of action towards them. We can attack via direct action, which would make us valiant, or maybe valiant fools. This is not the time, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say this clearly, let me say this loudly, and let me say this without any fear of contradiction or misunderstanding. This is not the time to lock and load and start shooting people and taking over the government, attempting to do so. This is not the time for that. It is not time for you to start shooting people that don't agree with you. It is not time to start shooting people that are punishing you. It is not time to start shooting people that are bringing danger to you. We haven't reached that place yet. And we hope that we never will. But this is not the time for armed, deadly action. This is not the time to attack in that form or fashion. We can also attack covertly in attempts to negate the situation. And even if it ever got to the place where we did have to take hard attack action, that doesn't mean that you've got to march on any specific place and destroy it. You can employ guerrilla tactics and be very effective in that regard. But we're not talking about that because we're not there. It's not time for an armed response to punishment. It is not time for an armed response to danger. It's not time, and mainly it's not time because it wouldn't be effective right now. And in fact, it would probably be counter survival activity because they would mow us down. It's not that time yet. This is a time, though, potentially for covert attacks. And covert attacks can take the form of avoidance and take the form of fleeing and take the form of negating. We can stop shopping at places that ask us to wear a mask. Or you can just be like me, walk the fuck in, even though they do ask you to wear a mask. We've got some friends named Kim and Mike. Kim is a pain in the ass, but I love her because that's probably why Kim and I, we have a really interesting relationship. I think we love each other. We appreciate each other, but it's bicker back and forth like siblings on a friendly basis. But we're so much alike. That's why we have that. She is the female version. I mean, she will walk her ass into the store. I just walk into the store without the mask, and I project the energetic impression that I'm invisible. You can ask Cynthia. I walk in and I'm saying to myself, I'm invisible. I'm invisible. And I never get challenged. I walk in anywhere without a mask. I don't get challenged because I'm projecting invisibility. Kim, she walks in, hey, hi, how you doing? She goes out of her way to draw the fact that she's not wearing a mask. See, I'm more covert in my attack, and she's just like, hey. It's hilarious, and it is inspiring, and we need more Kims in this world. We really do. But there's different and varying ways to attack. And the bottom line sort of is this. When we're talking about survivability, and Dianetics is all about surviving across what we call the dynamics. And the most basic dynamics are you surviving as an individual. The first and great dynamic of all life is survive. And if your life is not built and geared towards activity that is pro-survival, then you're irrational and you're ineffective. So a person that is, let me get on some of my favorite hobby horses, a person that is pro-survival is going to eat a pro-survival diet. They're not going to drink alcohol. They're not going to be recreational users of intoxicating substances that lower their rational mind. They're not going to be participants in things that support the system. They're going to be pro-survival. They're not going to be homosexual. Why? Because it's impossible to be homosexual and be pro-survival. Because the very definition of homosexuality is it ends with you and your partner. Because as long as you're really homosexual, you cannot reproduce. And if you cannot reproduce, you cannot survive. Now, on a societal level, if you're homosexual and you just do your homosexual and you don't try to export it or try to evangelize it, if you do your homo and let me do my hetero, we're fine. We're good. You don't need to be sanctioned. You don't need to be jailed. You don't need to be segregated. But when you start either A, trying to evangelize or export your homo, that's a no-go. We won't allow you to export your homo to our children. We won't allow you to evangelize your homo to society because it's contra survival. And we're here to build a society that is strong in survivability, and homosexuality detracts from that. It's just that simple. It's nothing personal. You do who you want to do, just don't make it our business. And if you want to be homosexual, you won't be a problem very long. Just one human lifespan, which isn't that long. And that kind of leads across the other dynamics, because the first dynamic is you. Survive. The second dynamic is survival for you and your immediate family. The third survival is you and your family and your symbiotes, your extended family. And then we get into you, your sexuality, your kids, your extended family, and then your community, and then your state, then your country. Then it goes beyond just your country to survivability of the entire earth. And then we would go to survivability. We'd go into the Scientology realm of survivability of all beings from all places. So we're trying to be pro-survival. And if we're not pro-survival, stop doing it. It's stupid. And as long as a human being retains enough humanity that sooner or later They will never succumb. The people that will succumb need to be drowned, metaphorically. They will never, a true human will never succumb. Now, a second creation, Genesis 2 being might succumb. In fact, they probably will. And if you do, you probably are one of those. But a true functioning first creation, Genesis 1 human, they may do a lot of avoidance. They may do a lot of neglect. They may do a lot of fleeing. They may do lower grade Jeff attack rather than Kim class attack. But a true human being will eventually attack as a result of a valid threat. And that is some informing to you Christians. That's some informing to you other people that want to continue to punish us and want to continue to bring sources of danger to us. We're good people. We're kind people. We're men and women of peace. But sooner or later, if you keep pushing us, you won't like the results and it won't end well for you. Because sooner or later, when we can no longer avoid, when we can no longer neglect, when we can no longer flee, we will never succumb. And that leaves us with one option. And that option is attack, and you will lose. And any human that is in a fair mental condition, any human that is normal, and any human that is functioning across the dynamics will at some point be pushed too far. They say that hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Wait till they see a real pro-survival human scorned, and wait till they see a whole group of us getting together being scorned. My wife made the great statement. They went and pissed off the people that just want to be left alone. You talk about reap the whirlwind. You talk about tell them I'm coming and I'm bringing hell with me. Kurt Russell, Tombstone. I recommend you stop. Christians, stop pushing us. Stop punishing us. Government, society, stop. Because sooner or later you'll push us too far and you won't like how it ends. And those humans, and there might be some first creation humans that will succumb, they're traitors. And the second creation humans that will succumb, that will give up, that won't even eventually push, some of us, we get pushed to the edge and we will attack and fight back. There are others that get pushed to the edge, they will crumble, they will succumb. And if you're one of those succumbers, whether you succumb now or you succumb later, you join our apathetic friends as candidates for drowning. That's just the way it is, ladies and gentlemen. That's just the reality of the situation that we find ourselves in. So how do you react to danger and punishment? And you can evaluate yourself along these lines just in the problems that you have in your lifetime. Just with the problems that you have in your lifetime, the way that you deal with situations in your life. How do you deal with situations in your life? When you have a situation that comes up, maybe it's not really a danger, maybe it's not really a punishment, but how do you normally deal with obstacles in your life? Far too many of you, if you're honest, succumb. Many more of you will just neglect, try to pretend like it's not there, hoping it will go away. Some of you avoid, some of you flee, but all too few of you will attack. Some of us have the opposite problem that you have. Most of you are just lazy, frightened little bitches. And you can't even take somebody disagreeing with your opinion. Your little feels get hurt when somebody tells you that the text means things and it doesn't matter what you think or what you feel. You succumb right away. You go down cheaper than a 50-cent whore. That's one problem in society. There's another problem in society that some of us deal with. Our first option is attack. And we need to, that's one of the reasons I'm with my wife. My first option is attack. My second option is attack. My third option is attack. And she's like, wait a second. You got to have balance. You got to have balance. But I'd much rather work with somebody that is attacked first, second, and third than somebody that is a succumb bitch. And if you are a Bible-believing, devoted Christian, you are a succumbing bitch. You know that book has been changed and warped and diluted, but you still succumb to it. You know that you can't prove that Jesus ever lived by any extra biblical source, but you still succumb to it. You know deep in your heart that you're not filled with original sin. You've held your newborn baby. You know that's not filled with original sin, but yet you still succumb. You know that the Bible's full of that little bitch-ass punk God of yours killing people, men, women, boys, girls, ripping babies from their wombs. And that's Old Testament. That's what you're based on. You know that Jesus said, I'm the Prince of Peace, but I didn't come to bring peace but a sword, to set mother against father, father against son. You know all that. But you still succumb because you're a coward. Because you can't bear to, number one, you're an egotistic fool, because you can't bear to say, shit, I've been wrong all this time. You may call me an egotist. You may call me an idiot. But let me tell you something. I spent 20 years as a preacher within Christianity. 4-year Bible college degree, 100,000 hours of study, 20 years as a preacher. You say, oh, Jeff, you're so full of ego. I was able to say, oh, shit, I've been wrong. And now I'm the Christian whistleblower, exposing the fear and guilt, blood magic, trauma-based mind control matrix that is Christianity. I'm so full of ego, I admitted I was wrong. I admitted I was deluded. So who's got the bigger ego problem? Me or thee? You won't leave Christianity because you can't get past your ego and admit that you fucked up. And then you're a coward. Not only are you an egotistic, narcissistic, likely psychopathic motherfucker, then you're a coward. Because you are afraid to leave your people. You don't have any confidence in yourself because you look around at your Christian people and you go, oh, Tom Cruise, you complete me. You look around at your preachers in your church and you go, oh, Tom Cruise, you complete me. That's bullshit, and you know it, and you just don't have the balls or the courage, number one, to overcome your own ego. Number two, to walk away from what you know is false. And number three, you're greedy. And I'm talking to most of you preachers and gurus and YouTubers now. Of course, you're ate up with ego. Of course, you're cowards, because not one of you motherfuckers will ever pick up a phone and say, Jeff, you're wrong, and here's why. Cowards. And you're greedy because you won't give up the money that you're making pitching the bullshit you pitch. And you're anti-survival dumbasses. And sooner or later, one of these days, you'll get what you deserve. You'll get what you deserve. So how do you deal with these things in your life? How will you deal with these things in your life? And not dealing is dealing. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Everything you needed to know in life can be learned from Captain Kirk and L. Ron Hubbard. What would Captain Kirk do? Captain Kirk, I'm a little bit like Captain Kirk. Attack, 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 attack. And Captain Kirk had Spock with him, right? Spock was like, Jim. And then he also had Dr. McCoy. Whoa, Jim, you got to slow down, Jim. Jim, are you crazy? Maybe that's emblematic of the real Trinity in humanity. Captain Kirk, attack, fire. Mr. Spock, let's think about this a minute. And Dr. McCoy, I'm a physician, not a fighter. You need to listen to all three of those and make a good, rational decision. And that's what L. Ron Hubbard put together, the greatest spiritual technologies of the world, to cobble together in Dynetics, which helps you do exactly that. So you guys that thought that I couldn't really bring together Captain Kirk and L. Ron Hubbard, how you like me now? Well, since I called out the Christian egotist, and since I called out the Christian cowards, and since I called out the Christian greed, the least I can do is open the phone line and give these cowardly bitches another chance to call, which they will, of course, not take, because they are exactly who and what I say they are. And they will never enter into the arena of ideas. They'll just keep doing what they do, because that's what a egotistical, cowardly, greedy bitch always does. So the phone lines are open. If you want to call, you can call at 913-279-0831. 913-279-0831. We won't keep them open for very long, but if you have the balls to make the calls, you are welcome to do so, and you're welcome to do so right now. Tomorrow night, late night in the Heartland, 10 p.m. Central Time, straight on through until midnight, we are going to be talking about who is that masked man. We're going to look at the whole idea of masks. Do you think it's just coincidental that masks are huge in our society right now? No. And we're going to go where no man has gone before. We'll look at the history of masks. We'll look at what masks are all about. And we'll move on. We'll talk about some comments right now. Brandon says people need to realize we're only seeing a character of Jeffrey here. Those that accuse him of egoism need to realize this. I wonder what Cynthia would say to that. I say yes and no to that, Brandon, and I appreciate your kindness. I say yes and no. You're seeing unfiltered Jeffrey here, but it is in some cases a character using absurdity to illustrate absurdity in some cases. And we need to do it. Well, Cynthia, who knows me better than anybody, has weighed in, so I'll just shut up. I guess you're right, Brandon. I guess you're right. Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see what we have here. It's late. It's not your normal Sunday. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty, Captain Kirk, and L. Ron Hubbard.
So I got Nimoy here with me, and you know that symbol? It is a sign for the divine masculine.
Which symbol is that? The Star Trek symbol?
Yeah.
That's a very interesting point. Delaney Black Pearl Jones. It is, in many cases, it's a symbol for the divine masculine. Nicely put.
I swear, I'm looking at my cane right now. It's shaped like a snake cobra. It's a piece of wood, and it has that exact symbol on it.
And if you notice, the reason this isn't just random from me. If you notice, you've got the Star Trek logo, the shield, and then the pyramid, which is employed in Dianetics. So they're both masculine symbols. And the point is that, and it's interesting that Delaney Black Pearl Jones and I are having this discussion. You have to listen, consult with your feminine side, but at the end of the day, it has to be a masculine decision to attack. And that's what happens when you have combination of feminine wisdom. Okay, wait a minute now. Can we avoid? Can we neglect? Can we flee? Can we attack in a less direct route? And those are all important steps to be a real, complete, decent human. But finally, that masculine, let's lock and load, has to come to the fore. And then both of them together are making that decision. Delaney Black Pearl Jones, great, great, great. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care, my love. I appreciate you very much. She's crazy, but I like her kind of crazy because we're both that same kind of crazy. Tracy with a good point. Masculine is your mind, feminine is intuitive. I'll go with that. It's not your normal Sunday. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty. Hello, you're live with Jeffrey Daugherty in the 314 area code.
Hello, Jeffrey.
Hi, what's on your mind today?
Yeah, my name's Kathy. I have a real big issue with the mask mandates. In my area, we don't have mandates.
Good.
But if I go to St. Louis City, they don't challenge the mandates. And I always go, in our region, we go to the managers. We discuss it with them. We're thoughtful and we're thankful for their service and helping us. We don't want the people quitting, but I'm upset for those that wear masks all the time. I'm upset for my son. He's waited over a year for his brain aneurysm.
Oh,
due to these mandates.
So sad.
Yeah. And I know other people who have other health issues and they're turned away. And that's what's upsetting me. The complacency. It's not just a mask. It's all the other stuff that goes around the mask.
Absolutely.
The COVID warnings. You get on your phone, you call a tow truck, you get a COVID warning. For God's sake, that takes precedence over everything.
It's fear, isn't it?
What?
It's fear, isn't it? They're trying to build fear.
It's fear in them trying to put fear in us.
Yep.
And I don't see that people don't see it. We are slaves to the system.
We are slaves to the system if we allow ourselves to be, and they want to make us all slaves. And I think you said something very profound there. It's their fear. They're manifesting their fear, and they want us all to buy it. But we don't have to take it. If you don't like peppermints and they're trying to give you a peppermint, you just say, no, thank you. But for some reason, everybody's accepting their peppermint. And we know we're not supposed to take candy from strangers.
Exactly. And when I went to the DMV, I saw the fear on this lady's face. So I put my scarf on. I happen to know the manager there. She was there.
Yep.
And I said, I saw the fear on your face. And we had a little discussion. And I told him I called the governor and he said there's no mandates. I said, who mandated this? She was afraid she'd lose her job. She was afraid the police would come in and arrest them. She had all this fear. And we all, 3 women and myself, talked about it. And the manager, the next time I went in, and she said the governor mandated it. I said, really? And I said, the police aren't going to enforce this.
Excellent.
They didn't know. And so the next time I went in, no masks. And I said, what happened? She goes, I overrode them.
Excellent. And see, you're probably smarter than I am, because I go to battle right away. And see, you're got the feminine wisdom. I got that masculine action. And we have to be smart enough and non-egotistical enough to say, okay, what's the best situation here? And that's why, my wife is much better at this than I am. And it sounds like you are too. So it's, We have to work together, and we have to be willing to learn from each other.
Well, you have to talk to the employees. They're not happy either.
Oh, that's a great
They're
point.
not happy. Would you want to wear a mask 10 hours a day and work all day?
Well, I wouldn't. And of course, the answer is no.
No. And they're suffocating themselves and harming themselves because of the mandates. And that's what I'm saying. I see the whole implications. I don't want my fellow neighbors getting sick. I don't want my friends getting sick because of somebody else's stupidity. But it's trying to get other people. Oh, well, they say, I don't wear a mask. Well, good for you. Neither do I. How's that changing anything? In some circumstances, going to a doctor's office, I went to a doctor over my son's brain aneurysm, and he was Chinese, and he had a mask on. And he was very argumentative and this and that. I couldn't believe it. I'm sitting in a doctor's office. Well, first of all, I'm sitting in a doctor's office with my son. The nurse tells me to put a mask on. I laughed. I'll put my scarf on. She said, no, you have to wear a mask. So I hold it up my face. She leaves. I take it down. I said, see, this is control.
It is.
I'm sitting in there 2 hours with my son, who I live with, who lives with me. And then the doctor wouldn't even take his mask off. And I go, I feel like I'm in China.
Oh.
And I get on a huffy fit. And he says, well, you need to get a second opinion. I go, we most certainly do.
Absolutely. And the second opinion is, after that great call, don't put the damn thing on. At the end of the day, be wise, be smart, but don't put the damn thing on. I should end with that call because that was a really good one, but it's only 3 minutes till 1. So we'll take at least one more call here and see what is on the mind of this individual. It's Not Your Normal Sunday. You're live with Jeffrey Daugherty, Captain Kirk, and L. Ron Hubbard.
Hi, have you ever heard of Healthy American Peggy?
I've never heard of Healthy American Peggy.
Well, she's awesome. She's real positive, bubbly blonde, but she, on her website, she has a 60-page legal dossier that anybody can use to sue people for not letting them enter their businesses without a mask.
Interesting. And what's her name again?
Healthy American Peggy.
Thank you. Healthy American Peggy, if you're interested in getting that document. And I like it. I like it. And ladies and gentlemen, with that, we are going to bring this edition of Not Your Normal Sunday, which is basically going to be our White Dianetics program. So we do it at least once a week, and we need to do it more than that, I realize. But it's Not Your Normal Sunday. It's a time for White Dianetics, and that's what we are all about on Sundays. We'll always probably try to open up the phone lines so people can, get some interesting, comments in. But we'll be back tomorrow night by 10 p.m. at the latest. You may see me in between. Subscribe the bell. Subscribe. Hit the bell. And give a thumbs up and thumbs down. You can also find previews now on Telegram. Jeffrey Daugherty plus a plus sign. It's late. It's Not Your Normal Sunday. Let's unindoctrinate ourselves. Oops. That was on long.